Hello Mouses! Today I want to talk about this interesting case where an advert for an app that goes on your phone that can supposedly take photos of people in the nude, it can't, but it supposedly can, has been banned because it advertised to children on a television show that is basically aimed at late teens and upwards, but is often watched by under 16s and therefore counts as being advertised to children. Now, the app itself is ridiculous. It's a crappy little game gimmick thing. But at the same time, it raises an interesting point. Whether an application that supposedly takes photos through your clothes is a breach of privacy. Now, I've mentioned on previous videos that in the UK there is no specific right to privacy. There are certain ways in which a right to privacy can be argued, and in some legal circles they would say that we've had a right to privacy incorporated into British law through Europe, but there is no specific actual right to privacy. There is an expectation of privacy, a reasonable expectation of privacy, which varies from point to point and under different circumstances, but there's no actual right. So, with that in mind, could an application that can take photographs through your clothes, even when it can't, but it appears to through gimmickry, could that be a violation of privacy? Let's have a think about it. Let's say you're indoors in an intimate situation where you are with someone and there is no one else around, there's just you two, and you might be getting a little close together. And then it turns out that secretly someone has taken a picture of you in those circumstances. Would that be a violation of privacy? I think all of us would say yes. You didn't expect anyone to be taking photos, but someone's taken a photo and they did it secretly. That's a violation of privacy. What if the person that you're with was holding a phone and you knew that they were taking photos? Is it then a violation of privacy? That's an interesting question, isn't it? Well, it's not a violation of privacy to have taken photos. You knew they were doing it and you haven't said anything to stop them. But did you know that they were taking photos that made it appear that you had no clothes on? That, I think, would be a different matter. You haven't agreed, either implicitly or explicitly, to nude photos, even CGI nude photos. So, in those circumstances, I would suggest that that would violate your reasonable expectation of privacy. You still had your clothes on when the person was taking the photo, so you've got an expectation that you're going to be seen with your clothes on, not without them. So, yes, I would say that's a violation of privacy. However, I want to take that a little bit further because you've got to remember that privacy is not the only legislation that can deal with this. What about harassment? Now, harassment is an interesting concept in UK law. I've also covered this in previous videos, and what we need to remember is that it doesn't just mean someone being mean to you. It doesn't mean someone sending letters to you. It doesn't mean any specific activity. And also, it doesn't mean more than one example of it. If someone is being rather aggressive in the way that they're taking a photo, that is harassment. And now we have to look at the idea of, well, why on earth would they want a nude photo of you that's taken candidly? It's probably not for a reason you're going to like. So would that be considered harassment? And yes, it can be, but it all depends on circumstances. And that's the issue with the harassment law. There isn't a specific thing where that's harassment and that's not, and there's a very, very strong line down the middle. It's not clear-cut like that. It's a sliding scale, and it all depends on individual circumstances. Now let's move on to another idea. What if you're out in the street and someone takes a photo of you? Is that a violation of your privacy? No. You've got to remember that in a public place, you have no reasonable expectation of privacy. For example, the police, if they stop and search you, can ask you to take off outer layers of clothing. They can't ask you to take all your clothes off. That is not allowed. But they can ask you to take an outer layer of clothing off. However, they have to give you the opportunity to do that out of public view. And the reason they have to do that is because you have an expectation that you will not have to be disrobed in public. Which goes a long way to what we're about to talk about. If you have someone take a photograph of you in public and use that application filter to make it look like you're nude in public, you still have a claim under privacy violation because, as the police have demonstrated, you can't be expected to go nude in public. And people can't make you do that. And it's the making that is the issue. They can't make you do it even if they're the police. They certainly can't make you do it if you're on an application. Which is why these photographs are so problematic. Now, you've got to remember that these photos aren't great. It doesn't look like some actual nudity scanner. It's not X-ray glasses that are advertised in the back of comics in the the 80s and before that. It's a really crude example, so it's not going to convince anyone that you did it. It's there as a joke, but as the technology increases, they're getting more and more sophisticated, and it's quite possible that the higher end applications are going to look fairly realistic, which is where the privacy violations and calls for harassment come in. I know people are going to defend and say, oh, it's a joke, and yes, it is a joke. It's a bit of a silly joke, but it is a joke nevertheless, that you can defabricate people with your phone. But when it's used for harassment and to make a joke at someone's expense, it goes against just a joke and into violating laws. So you've got to be careful when you're using it. Using it with friends is perfectly fine, but using it against someone you don't like for online trolling and bullying, now you've crossed the line. And that's something that you have to remember when using little toys like this. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I hope this clarified some ideas of privacy for you. And if you did like it, remember to click the like button, share it with your friends so that they can see what's been going on in privacy laws as well, and do subscribe for future videos because there will be more in the future. But until next time, I've been Kirk-Robinson, you've been watching the Knob Mouse Show, and I'll see you tomorrow.